Welcome to week 4 of the Elestriad, where DistantCoder sitting at 3-0 is taking on Drewby, sitting at 2-1, and both these casters are bringing very similar decks. If you haven't checked out the deck profile, check it out in the description below. There is one big difference between these two, and that is going to be removal. DistantCoder has prioritized getting removal throughout the Elestriad with Earthquakes and Resting on Your Laurels and Poison-Tipped Arrows and Gorgon's Gaze most recently added. I think it's going to be a difference maker. Let's see how Drewby's able to respond. Make sure you guys show some love, hit that like button down below. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel and leave a comment down below who you want to win this one, of course. And don't forget, we still have starter decks available over at shop.elestrals.com. Let's dive into the clash. All right, diving right in, DistantCoder looks like they're kicking things off with a Lycaris, Wind Spirit, and a Hydrake to start their first turn. A really big play with 2 back row. He's gonna pass. Both these casters rocking a lot of win this week with their Hydrake strategies. However, again, I mentioned earlier that DistantCoder has plenty of removal, and that's going to make things a little tougher for Drewby to navigate. He's going to start it off with a Thunder Spirit. Could this be an Astrabbit? It is a defensive play. Astrabbit hitting the field. DistantCoder looks bamboozled from that one. That's going to give Drewby the opportunity to look at the top 3 of his deck and grab exactly what he needs to his hand. This is one of the best ways to deal with Hydrake and Pantera, is just kind of stop them from doing what they want to do. If they don't have the opportunity to crash and get themselves destroyed, then they can sit there all day. So it looks like Drewby grabbed Nectar of the Gods. He's going to be able to use 2 spirits to grab 2 additional cards from his deck, add it to his hand, and put himself in a really good position in terms of resources. He's got a lot of options to play with. He's got a good defensive backbone right now, and he's got himself in a position where he most certainly can kind of deal with this Hydrake, at least right now. And Mount Olympus hits the field, getting him to 6 defense. That's going to make it so Twindra won't even be able to knock him out. And that could prove to be useful or not, right? This makes it so Toxion ends up being a crash into Twindra. There's some benefits, there's some drawbacks, but ultimately having the Mount Olympus on the field is going to buff those Thunder Elestrals, which we'll see how it's going to play out. It's one of those things where it may end up being advantageous or not. Is this a Sorlet? It is a Sorlet. DistantCoder's got the perfect answer. No back row on Drewby's end. That means Astrabbit's going to attack position. Not quite an opportunity to crash just yet for Hydrake, but he is going to be able to take out the Rabbit and hit directly for 1 Spirit here. A good play from DistantCoder. Sorlet always proven to be clutch, especially when it comes to removing those threats, and that's where the back row is so incredibly important. DistantCoder understands that rocking a plethora of counter runes is the best way to play Elestrals right now, in terms of giving yourself an advantage. When you're Drewby and you have no back row, it just opens the door for those types of plays where there's just no risk at all. But here we go. Drewby's fired off with a Hydrake. DistantCoder, if he has a response, it's not going to be on cast. It looks like he's going to let this Hydrake come forward. If you're Drewby, you probably crash into the Sorlet, get your Twindra out. But what do you do from there? I mean, you have your Hydrake. You might dissuade DistantCoder from attacking you, but if you go on the offensive, you're just going to give Coder what he wants too. So this is a really interesting showdown. It looks like he is going to go and get Pandora's box. Oh my gosh, DistantCoder with the perfect play. Pandora's box going to mill away a Tsunami as well. And OP, guys, that's going to prevent that Hydrake from searching out the Twindra. A massive play, and DistantCoder is in the driver's seat on this one. You love to see it. Pandora's box, a card that does not see a lot of play, right? Like, this is a card a lot of casters are not running right now in Elestrals. It's often disregarded for other counter runes, but look at this. He uses it perfectly, shutting down the Hydrake play, and now has an Astrabbit of his own. There is a face down rune for Drewby, but DistantCoder is starting to get a significant advantage in this clash with Astrabbit, Hydrake, and Sorlet. That Pandora's box could not be more perfectly executed. I love that. And then we see a couple runes face down. Drewby has no response to that. He's taking a hit for 3. It's still a very close clash, though. We're right in the thick of things here. But if you're Drewby, you need some big plays to get back into this one, right? I mean, you're staring down 3 Elestrals. You know, you don't have a ton of removal in your deck. You got to be worried about that Hydrake because it brings out Twindra so incredibly fast. Sorlet can change the position of your Elestrals, so you can't even go on the defensive. Drewby has plenty of resources in his hand, and he's going to add even more with another Nectar of the Gods. A lot of times this card can prove to be a little bit poisonous, really, because it's so tempting. Oh, I get to play this card and get 2 more, but those 2 spirits can really start to rack up. And if you're not drawing the cards that you need, it ends up not being all that much of an advantage. So we got a face down rune. Here comes a Zeus. This could be the opportunity for Drew to come back in this one. I think he's going to need to be able to get some Nexus plays. But when you have 3 face down runes on DistantCoder's end, you got to think there's got to be a Gorgon's Gaze mixed in there, or a Tsunami, or something, a PTA to stop you. I mean, I feel like you got to be scared if you're Drewby. That back row is very threatening. Here comes a Quackle. That's going to regen 3 spirits. I actually really like this play. This is an opportunity for him to maybe crash into the rabbit, kind of get your 3 spirits, hold yourself in the game a little bit longer. You can use Zeus to maybe hit one of them. He's got a couple different options here on what he can do. He can actually crash the... no, he can take out the Sorlet, so that might be the play, right? You disenchant the Zeus, drop the Sorlet's attack, and then go after the Sorlet here because you're going to be 3 attack from your Mount Olympus. Let's see what Drewby's going to do. I almost thought, you know, DistantCoder is going to have some sort of an answer here, but he's going to take it. Sorlet's going to go down. He's not going to use his back row yet. Quackle's not a huge threat. Only 1 face down rune from Drewby. DistantCoder feels that he can kind of hang in this. Doesn't want to use his runes. There's an Aeolus. So one was a bait, right? He had the Aeolus. We've seen DistantCoder all season long, basically enchanting Aeolus to 2, using its effect and not saving it for later. I tend to play my Divines a little bit differently than that, but I can understand the play. But let's listen in and see what he's thinking. It looks like he might be getting P-Gust here.
I will run out P-Gust and attack.
Yep.
I'll use the effective P-Gust. I'll destroy the Zeus.
Zeus is gone.
I will enter battle phase.
Yep.
I'll attack with Hydrake over the Quackle.
Hydrake over Quackle. You normal this turn already.
I did, yeah. Massive shield incoming.
Yeah.
Massive shield.
I'm gonna bounce the Hydrake.
Yeah, that's fine. That is
I gotta
okay.
do 2 everything else. Do.
Yes, sir. I'll crash the rabbit into the Quackle.
Yeah.
And then P-Gust in for 1.
Well, that's a huge flip in board state there. Drewby activating the Shield of Achilles at a great time to bounce the Hydrake back to Coder's hand. It's not a problem right now, but it will be a problem on the next turn. But at the very least, it gives Drewby an opportunity to try to get back into this clash. He's got another Quackle. That's going to regenerate 3 spirits for him right now. That's a +2 on that and get him right back into this one. Quackle, with its buff from Mount Olympus, is stronger than P-Gust, so this is exactly what Drewby needed again to be able to try to come back in this clash. He was down on field 3-0. There were 3 Elestrals on Coder's side, and Drewby had none. And now Drewby is right back into it with the advantage on field. Again, that Hydrake is such a problem, though. But we're going to see a Thunder Spirit this time and an Elechic. DistantCoder going to be able to search out for another Divine Rune. He could go Aeolus. He could go Zeus. Let's see what he's going to grab. But Elechic giving him that flexibility and a 5 attacker, too. Like, let's not forget that. Mount Olympus buffing up Elechic. Very, very strong. He's going to grab the Zeus. Elechic's going to take out the Quackle. If you're Drewby, your Hail Mary here, I think, is that Coder doesn't have a good face down rune and that you can Hydrake your way up to a Pantera. I think that that's probably your Hail Mary, but there's always other opportunities. I think that Mount Olympus may end up biting him more than helping him here. He's going to go Wind Spirit Hydrake. He has exactly what he needs to potentially come back, but does Coder have the back row? This is going to be huge. If Coder has anything in the back row, we saw him bluff an Aeolus earlier. If he has a counter rune that can deal with Hydrake or Twindra, that could be huge. But if not, there's a huge opportunity here for Drewby. He's going to go Hydrake into Elechic. Elechic does get the KO here. That's going to force out the Twindra. Twindra's going to come to the field with 2 spirits on it and 5 attack. Again, the Elechic also sitting at 5 attack because of the Mount Olympus. This would cause them to crash. If the attack goes through, Coder takes 1 spirit of damage, and then Pantera hits the field. The question is, does DistantCoder have an answer to stop this attack? Does he have a Tsunami? He's going to misenchant it, actually. He's going to misenchant it. So rather than going for the Pantera play, he's going to misenchant and give himself a Mount Olympus buff to get him to 6 attack this time to be able to hit over the Elechic. I love this play, but there's a Shield of Achilles waiting for him right there, proving to be the dominant card this week in the Elestriad. Shield of Achilles making its impact known, getting Drewby back into the game, and then coming right back and bouncing the Twindra right back to his hand. Will he be able to recover from this? We've got a 7-5 game here, but Drewby's about to take a hit from this Elechic any minute now. Let's listen in for the final play.
Yep.
I will set 2. I'll move to battle, and I'll swing you for 1 and 1.
Yep.
And then your go.
Down to 3. Draw. You got it. I got nothing.
Got nothing?
I got nothing.
Bro, you also have double Twindra in hand?
Yeah.
you also got 2 of the things?
I got nothing.
Oh, man.
I got nothing.
Yeah. I was hoping to, because I drew the rabbit off the top, and I had to dig for something to like prevent you from killing my guys. I hit the other shield, so I was like, yeah, next turn just.
Looks like Brick City down at the end there with a lot of Twindras in hand. I think this is going to be a good lesson for our deck builders here, Drewby on this one, to really kind of strip back a little bit on the number of Elestrals. There was a lot of Elestrals in hand there at the end. Actually, it looks like, what is that, 6 Elestrals in hand at the end. That is not the scenario you want to be in. Generally, right now, in competitive Elestrals, you're seeing between 15 and 18 Elestrals, and then the rest are runes, especially when you're running Wind, where Aeolus essentially counts as an Elestral for you because it can so quickly search out those Elestrals. So, really interesting gameplay here. It was a close one. Drewby hung in there. I got to give him props. He flipped that board state back when it looked like he was very far behind, but some well-timed runes on DistantCoder's end ultimately makes the difference. I think, again, some other tweaks, maybe trying to get some Pika out a little earlier. He did have that Arrowmare, or that Aeolus there, but it's a little tough to execute those strategies when you're kind of trying to climb back in the clash after some big rune play there from DistantCoder. So Coder moves to 4-0. Make sure you guys like this one, subscribe if you guys are new, and stay tuned for the rest of the Elestriad matches all this week. We'll see you guys soon.